Well, a good election Tuesday to you, my friends. I hope you can hear me. This is Bible Billy O. Got a little bit of time before I have to start my shift, but I just wanted to see if any of you could relate. There's just been a lot of thick fear, it seems like, in the air with so many people, and we're praying for them. And some are out of health concerns being fearful, and some because of the elections are fearful. And it reminded me of something I was listening to the other night from one of my favorite pastors. He was talking about the first Easter, first resurrection morning, first day of the week, which is why we celebrate on Sundays as a congregation. And it talks about how in John's Gospel, Jesus reveals himself, and it's not an evangelism campaign that he goes on when he first comes back. The preacher I listened to said, if it were you or I, wouldn't you want to make a point to come to those who said you wouldn't rise again, that once you were dead, you'd be dead for good? And Jesus isn't about trying to prove himself to any of these unbelieving types. Instead, he comes to the people that already believe, or at least they believe to a certain level. Some are his disciples, some are just followers. And that whole 40 days that he stays and reveals himself, he reveals to each one a little bit differently, and I thought that's an interesting thing. First, you have Peter and John running to the tomb, and I'm in chapter 20 of John, and it's interesting, all the details of who's the first to walk in, and they're standing in unbelief, and they're scared. These are the two men that were closest in the inner circle to Jesus. Many of the disciples are hiding because they know there are people that are out to get them also, these followers of this one who claimed to be the Messiah. And they've got themselves bolted in, indoors. Mary Magdalene is brave enough to run out to the tomb also, and she has an encounter. Jesus says to her, Mary, and she recognizes his voice. It's interesting. She doesn't recognize him, the person, at first, but as soon as he says Mary, she turns and in Aramaic says Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus says to her, don't grab me. He says, I haven't been ascended yet to my Father. And Mary goes and tells the other disciples, I've seen the Lord. And of course, they're scared. They're scared out of their wits. And I can relate. There are a lot of people today that don't know whether to, what do they say, spit, fall backwards, or die. You know, they just don't know what to do. And I'd probably be right there with them. I'm sure I would be. And Jesus knows exactly what to do. He comforts them. And through the door, which is bolted, all of a sudden he appears amongst them. And we're in chapter 20 still, in verse 19. I just want to read it to you. Hopefully it'll bless you as it's been blessing me. On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors were locked, and the disciples were for fear of the Jews. And Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. And that word peace is a strong Hebrew word. It means shalom. It is wholeness. It is completeness. It means everything's all right. I'm holding it all together. And it's his peace that he gives us, by the way. And I think we need that right now. When he said this, he showed his hands and his side, and then the disciples were glad when they saw that it was the Lord. Again, he's revealing himself a little differently to them. And Jesus says to them again, peace be with you. And this is a powerful verse when you get to verse 20, 21, and 22. He says, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And that word, and he uses the term, the Father has sent me, or the one who sent me, many times in this gospel. And make no mistake, only Jesus can fulfill the mission that the Father sent him to do. None of us can die for the sins of the world and be a redeemer. But he does say, the way the Father has sent me, and it's by an extension. This is where you get into the authority of the believer. And this is where we have tremendous hope today. He says, the way that he sent me, even so I am sending you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them, and he said to them, receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven of them. And if you withhold forgiveness of any, it is withhold. Interesting, he goes right into forgiveness, one of the most powerful forces in the universe. But it's interesting to me, his breathing on them to receive the Holy Spirit didn't happen on Pentecost sometime later. He is, in a supernatural way, he's extending himself to the disciples. And he does that for us today. He wants us to be the very extension of his life. And that's encouraging and comforting to me, because it tells me I can't do it in my own strength. I can't reach people for the Lord. I can't be a comfort to people for the Lord without him. The same way that the Father sent him, he says, I'm sending you. So just be encouraged with that. First, by the fact that he says peace twice. That word shalom. It's a powerful word. My peace be with you is what he's giving us. And he even comes back a week later for Thomas's sake. Has him touch the wound. Reveals himself a little differently to him. And then the disciples that are walking on the road to Emmaus. You know, it's an interesting thing. The Lord gives a personal revealing, way different to every person. And nobody's experience with Christ is the same. I just pray that you receive him today, the same way that he breathed on them. Receive that Holy Spirit as a gift. He still offers today. He's the living Word. And he's going to go with you, no matter what the election results are, no matter what the day has to hold for you. His peace is with you, and he says, the way the Father sent me, I'm sending you. So you're going in that power and that authority. Receive that today, and be blessed. I call you blessed, and for now, this is Bible Billy O signing off.